Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1987 sequel, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2. Now, before I get into my review of this film, as well as a little bit of a rant, because, to be perfectly honest, I don't think this movie is very good. Um, I want to give a special shout out to Jonathan Lindsay for sending me this Blu-ray, and I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope all of you enjoy the video as well. So, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 is a sequel that came out in 1987, and in a lot of ways seems like it was just a quick cash grab from the beginning. One of those movies where the original production company that was producing this got the rights to the footage for the first film and decided that that was enough of a reason to make a sequel despite not really having anything other than the plans for a bare bones architecture. It's one of those films where they just decided to do it based on the name alone and the fact, oh hey, we got some Silent Night, Deadly Night footage. Hey, Lee Harry, like you've edited a bunch of movies for our company. Can you possibly do something with this with stock footage? And that's why the movie has over 40 minutes of stock footage from the original movie, and not the uncut footage either from the home video release. The theatrical footage. And I understand why this film has garnered a cult following over the years. I understand why people really do get a kick out of this movie. And the main reason, and really the only reason, is Eric Freeman. That's the only reason. Eric Freeman's incredibly incompetent performance that is so hilariously terrible that you can't help but laugh and enjoy every scene that he is in. But if you ask me, he doesn't save the film. Over 40 minutes of the movie is useless stock footage from the first film. I know a really good friend of mine, he likes this more than the first movie because to him this is like the greatest hits of the first movie plus Ricky Freeman and Eric Freeman's crazy performance. And I don't think Ricky Chapman is his name. Although a lot of people just kind of get the two mixed up because Eric Freeman is pretty much known as being Ricky in this movie. And rightfully so. Don't get it twisted, folks. I like Eric Freeman's performance in this. It is one of those so bad it's good performances. I mean, Garbage Day! I mean, that's such a iconic and memorable sequence. And it's a pretty funny line. And there are a lot of scenes that he's in that I definitely do find entertaining. I wouldn't say this is the worst film in this franchise. I mean, this isn't anywhere near as terrible as The Toy Maker or Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, which is incredibly boring and has nothing going for it. At least this has Eric Freeman and his incredibly incompetent performance that is uniquely awful in so many ways. And there's some clever kills here and there, like the stuff with the car battery and Chip and his eyes exploding. The sequence with the umbrella, which originally was supposed to be bloodier and more violent, but it got cut by the MPAA. There's supposed to be entrails and stuff coming off of the end of the umbrella as Ricky stabbed that mugger in the chest with it, but that ultimately didn't happen. So there's some creativity here, but I'm sorry. The movie is an incredibly difficult film to sit through in the first 40 minutes or so, despite Eric Freeman's best efforts. Fuck off, Doc! You know, despite his best efforts, it's incredibly hard to sit through because there's nothing to be invested in, and it's so dull and boring to watch 40 minutes of stock footage compromised of sequences from the first film and scenes that Ricky was never even in. So there's no way in hell he could have even had any perspective on these sequences because they're from the point of view of Billy. And I don't honestly think they had to do so much with the stock footage. Like, just have more scenes of Eric Freeman doing crazy shit. Have a young kid actor play a young Ricky. Rent some house to make it kind of look like an orphanage. Have the actress who was playing Mother Superior in this film before she ends up with makeup on and looking like a goblin, like have her just be Mother Superior and abuse the kid in various different crazy ways, including possibly leaving him in the garbage, like leaving him in a dumpster as a punishment, which because he was naughty, and that might explain why he has such an aversion towards garbage day or garbage in general. Just a little bit more effort other than the next to no effort that was put into the overall story and the overall setup of this movie. That would have been much appreciated. And you could have had Eric Freeman's legendarily terrible performance, and it would have still worked, but you would have also had a film and a story around it that actually would have been somewhat competent. I mean, even just tweaking the climax up, instead of having it be Eric Freeman's Ricky stalking a old Mother Superior post-stroke in a wheelchair, have some other higher stakes, have him go on another rampage, do something else other than that, because there's absolutely zero suspense in the climax as a result. Because I don't give a shit what happens to Mother Superior. And if you ask me, she's been through enough already. She had a stroke, she's disfigured, she's in a wheelchair, she's living in an apartment complex, the house number being 666. So it's one of those things that's like, she's been through enough already. Honestly, killing her ends her suffering way too soon. The more fitting punishment for her would be just to live the rest of her life and the rest of her days in seclusion, not away from anyone, and dealing with her own sins. But, you know, that's just me personally. I know people like this movie and genuinely think it's good, or at least think it's one of those so bad it's entertaining movies. And that's fine, to each their own, but I have absolutely zero defense for the 40 minutes of stock footage. None whatsoever. And that's a big reason why the film, to me, honestly sucks. It's not as shitty as some of the sequels in this franchise, but it's not what I would call a good movie. Eric Freeman's performance isn't enough to save the movie for me, because half the film is utterly pointless and completely useless. Eric Freeman tries. He tries as hard as he can, but he's fighting a losing battle. So it's directed by Lee Harry, and Lee Harry's a guy who before this had done some short films and was more well known as an editor. And you can tell the guy seems like he's a really wonderful person, stand-up guy. I have nothing against him personally, but you can tell that this is a guy who's not really that great of a director. He's better at being in the editing booth, because none of the sequences he shot really had any flair or style or anything memorable about them. And he even admits in the honestly quite superb making of documentary on this film that's featured on this Blu-ray called Sleigh Bells Ring Again. He mentions in that documentary that he's interviewed in that some of the film's most competent shots weren't even shot by him. They were shot by the director of photography. So it's one of those things where, or the director of photography or another crew member gave him the shot list, wrote out storyboards, essentially gave him a paint by numbers kit to be able to direct some of the most basic sequences for a director. So it's no surprise that he didn't go on to do much else after this, other than some really obscure action movie I've never heard of called Street Soldiers. But like I said, I have nothing against the man personally. He seems like a really nice guy, and he had fun with the film and shooting it, and it was a great experience for him, and he helped make it a good experience for pretty much everyone else on set. So I got to give him kudos for that. But I'm not going to say his direction was great, because it really wasn't really anything that special. The script by Lee Harry and Joseph H. Earl, another thing that's not really that spectacular or that special. I don't even know if all the memorable lines were really lines that were initially in the script. I know Garbage Day was, but I think there were other stuff that was just improvised by Eric Freeman. But at the same time, let's just take a step back, folks, and think about how some of these sequences and some of these scenes would play out, and some of these lines of dialogue would play out with some other actor other than Eric Freeman. I mean, stuff like, for example, this line where, he's talking about, a line like this: you tend to get paranoid when everyone around you gets dead. Or how about this one? The only reason why this line is memorable is because of Eric Freeman's incredible incompetence and overacting when he is saying this particular line of dialogue. My old lady couldn't afford to send me to college, so I got a job. It's like, that's the most basic line of dialogue. It's not even a one-liner. It's not even anything memorable. But Eric Freeman is the only reason why that line is memorable to anybody, because of how bad his acting is. Now, my old lady couldn't afford to send me to college, so I got a job. And I mean, even how he says Billy in this film is hilarious. And I don't think that was the intention. He's supposed to have a flashback of when he thought Billy got shot in the first movie, but it was just the other Santa Claus that was coming to visit the orphanage was like the father or whatever. And you know what I mean, not like father, but the religious kind of father. So father, whatever, not Marin, but that's a different movie. But the other Santa Claus who gets shot, and this is supposed to be this traumatic flashback, and he's just like, Billy. It's just the only reason why lines like naughty this or boo are memorable or even remotely worth talking about is because of Eric Freeman. The script wasn't really that great. I will give the screenplay this. I thought that it was pretty clever when it comes to the reference to the first film in the movie theater scene. That was fun, and that was actually quite witty. But I honestly wish it was in a movie that didn't already have 40 minutes of stock footage, because seeing more stock footage from the first movie at that point was just overkill. But yeah, the screenplay isn't anything special, much like the direction. And the performances, I mean, James L. Newman likes to talk about himself as if he's a great actor, but at best he's average. This performance is fine, but it's nothing that particularly impressive. And I could say the same for everyone else in the cast. Uh, Especially someone like Guilbeau. I'm trying to say his name right. Darrel Guilbeau, who plays Ricky at 15, which is completely unbelievable. Because this guy was in his mid-20s when he took this role, and you could tell. I mean, he's supposed to be a teenager, and he looks older than Eric Freeman. And there's a reason for that. Because he was older than Eric Freeman at the time. He was 25, and Eric Freeman was 19. So, yeah, that was just some pretty bad casting. But that scene kind of works, though, because of that. Because it just, the casting is so bad, and you could tell that this is a guy in his mid-20s with a 5 o'clock shadow trying to be a 15-year-old kid, that it was worth a little bit of a chuckle just for that alone. Um, Elizabeth Kaitan, she was fine as Jennifer. I mean, she definitely looked fine. I mean, damn, she was drop dead gorgeous in this. She was just drop dead gorgeous, period, for a good chunk of her career. In films like this, Assault of the Killer Bimbos, one of the Friday the 13th sequels. I think she was. I think it was New Blood. Yeah, she played Robin in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. She was also the lead in Necromancer. Um, but yeah, she was just smoking hot in this film. Her performance, not really that great, but she definitely was nice to look at. The and But that sex scene was not nice to look at all. Lee Harry, he directed this sex scene as if they were a bunch of corpses or something. Like there's no life or no energy to this sex scene. It was one of the most unerotic sex scenes I've ever seen. It was as if Eric Freeman was just fucking a mannequin. Like that's really what the sex scene was. It was so unerotic, it was so static, it was so slow moving, and just the complete opposite of sexy. He might as well have just been feeling up a mannequin for 2 minutes. Um Literally giving a whole new meaning to the term giving head. But anyway, yeah, the performances weren't really that great. I mean, you could even say that the first film had some legitimately good performances by some of the supporting cast members. That's not the case here. I mean, you got the other actress who plays Mother Superior, Jean Miller, not really a suitable replacement. Uh, but I guess she does okay with what she has to work with. Ken Weichert as Chip. He played a great jackass, a great jerk off. So I'll give him credit for that. Um, but that's really about it. Like no one else really has that many lines of dialogue or that many scenes, and no one else really leaves the same mark on the film. Eric Freeman just comes in and blows the house down. Uh, and no one else comes even close. And the film, despite its really short running time of 88 minutes, feels like an eternity because, like I said, the first 40 minutes are nothing but stock footage, and it's boring because there's literally no stakes. It doesn't make any sense story-wise, and especially if you just watch the first movie, it's so tedious because you're like, I've already seen this. I like what I saw when I last saw these scenes, but that doesn't mean I want to see them again with narration from Eric Freeman and talking about sequences and events that there's no possible way that Ricky was even a part of. And I know Lee Harry's given an explanation for why there was stock footage, because that's what he was contracted to do at the start. I get it. It still doesn't make it any less lazy or any less lame. In this instance, the critical derision this film got, it was well deserved, because this is not a good movie. Let's be honest. Like, it's one of those things. It's like, if you like the film, cool. But is this really a competent production? Is this really a good story? If the only thing that's good about this is Eric Freeman and his performance that is so terrible that it's entertaining, then maybe it isn't really that good of a film. Maybe it's a movie that has a fun performance by the lead actor, but it's not a very good movie. I mean, I've even seen people say things like, I like the film, but I fast forward through the first 40 minutes of the movie, or just fast forward to the Eric Freeman parts. I'm like, that's half the movie. So you only like half the movie. So how is this a good film to you if you only like half the movie? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Like, if you think it's a so bad it's good movie and you enjoy it despite how bad it is, cool. I mean, I feel the same way about Megaforce. And some other movies like Hard Rock Zombies. But I don't get people actually saying this is a good film. That's just something I don't understand. I will never get. But hey, once again, if you feel that way, I don't have an issue with it. I just don't get it. That's the thing. I just don't understand. But I do get the appeal of the film for Eric Freeman's performance. I totally get it, because it is unquestionably unique and one of a kind in how bad it is. So it's one of those things where I definitely get why it's gotten a cult following. I definitely get why people have warmed up to this movie or enjoy it as a drive-in, like, B movie. I get it. A movie where they put on with friends and drink a beer or two and just shoot the shit and crack fun at it. And I totally understand that. I get why it has that appeal. It just isn't appealing enough as a whole for me personally. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm gonna be honest. Like I said earlier in this video, and like I've said a few times, I think this movie sucks. Despite the fact that Eric Freeman is a treasure and his performance is something that is for the ages in terms of how uniquely bad it is. I mean, even the music isn't much of anything. I mean, the original score might as well just been someone just tossing a bag of sand or flour on a keyboard and just like, calling it a day. I mean, it's a shitty, cheap Casio score that you've heard in a million other cheap direct-to-video piles of crap. So there's nothing about the score that is particularly memorable or noteworthy or good. The editing by Lee Harry, it's serviceable. The music, I already mentioned the music. Sorry, it's just one of those reviews where I'm a little bit scatterbrained. I apologize. And then like there's cinematography by Harvey Jenkins. It's all right, I guess. And yes, the movie cost $100,000. It was made on the dirt cheap, and that's why they had things like a dry head for the Mother Superior when she gets decapitated at the end, and why there's so much stock footage. I understand it. And I guess for a low budget, you could have done worse, considering how low the budget was for this movie. And even in this franchise, there is worse. Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3. You better watch out. You better watch out for this piece of shit flying right in your face. that's so bad it makes you want to stab an icicle in your eye to end the fucking pain. Because the pain of an icicle in your eye isn't as painful as watching Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. That doesn't mean this film is a good movie, despite it being a lot better than part 3 or 5 or 4. But this is a good Blu-ray though. Like this is a great Blu-ray. I am really thankful for and really appreciative of this gift by Jonathan, because even though I don't like this movie, I'm glad to have this in my collection, because the making of documentary, which was over an hour and 15 something minutes, was a blast to watch, and I honestly liked it more than the movie. It was full of a lot of really fun behind the scenes stories and the kind of stuff that I just love to see when I'm watching behind the scenes documentaries or featurettes. The garbage days are here again bit where, you know, they're looking at the film's locations. That was really nothing. It was another lame shot comparison edit like the first locations video was. I did like the Ricky Today short film. That was pretty fun. It showed you that this actor Eric Freeman, he honestly is not as bad as he appeared in Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, because his performance in this short film is actually pretty good. It's still a little bit out there, but the acting is actually not as terrible. But at the same time, it's also not as memorable. So I think if he played it that way, I don't think the film would nearly have the same amount of fans that it does to this day, because there really wasn't a whole lot of things that were that unique about that short film appearance, other than it was a lot of fun to see Eric Freeman play Ricky once again. And then there's a really cool hour-long, not introspective isn't the right word, hour-long retrospective, an interview with makeup effects artist Christopher Biggs about his career, about his time on this film. That was a really informative, really entertaining, enjoyable mini documentary on Christopher Biggs's career. And as a guy who loves makeup effects, that was just the cherry on top of the sundae when it comes to this this Blu-ray and its special features. So I definitely feel it is absolutely 100% worth buying for the features alone, even if you're not a fan of the movie, because they are really high quality, unlike the film itself. But anyway, I've talked about this film more than I thought I was going to for 20, almost 30 minutes, and I got nothing else to say other than Eric Freeman really does rock, and I'm looking forward to seeing Finding Freeman. And I guess if I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I gotta give it 1 out of 5, and that 1 is mainly just for Eric Freeman. I can't give it for anything else in terms of the film's production, the direction, the writing, other performances. I just really can't give it anything higher than 1 star, because I really truthfully do not like more than half of this movie. And if it wasn't for Eric Freeman, I would hate the film. It would be on the same level as Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. But anyway, thank you for your cooperation, and have a nice day.